If you like small markets, then fine.
Okay.
Which is true. I mean, like the addressable market for most of these things is just not very big. So you can build a real business. Don't get me wrong, but if you're going to, if you're looking to build a, like, what is the next Apple, what is the next Uber-sized business? I'm just not seeing it. I think you need a general device and you need a platform, something that many people can use for many things.
Right.
You can certainly build a business. I'm sure there are millions of dollars, maybe tens of millions of dollars of revenue to be garnered in some enterprise areas. But this is like a systems integration, custom development project in almost every case. It doesn't scale, it's not as replicable. So on the consumer side, I don't think you're going to see anything come out that's good in the next year.
Okay.
I don't think Apple will nail it either. That's a little bit of a bolder thing to say. We'll know within the next 2 years for sure. I think it's going to think back to the Tesla Model S, which was the first mainstream electric car. I think you're going to see one product that's actually really good and that sees relatively widespread adoption.
They're expensive.
That's maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, unlike a car, I think these consumer electronics type devices you may be able to build them relatively cheaply and scale. The bold prediction I will make is that within 5 years, the majority of people will be wearing some kind of AR device. So I think there's a big, in 2 years, it'll be zero, and I think between year 2 and year 5, there's going to be a big rapid adoption. And you're probably going to see a bunch of products in the market as well. There's a couple, or if not one, coming out as a market leader.
Right. We'll bring you back in for this panel again in 5 years, and we'll see if it comes true.
Is anyone recording this?
Oh, we got it.
Okay.
Tons of cameras.
So when I'm right, we'll have proof.
There you go.
The rest
That's what cameras work.
So I guess it's really a market timing question.
Yes.
I think, so from a non-investor perspective, just in terms of AR usage, I think we've already seen that people already use AR for social media, for example, on all social media platforms. And it's normal consumers, right? It's normal people. So from that perspective, AR is already here. And we've also seen Pokemon Go. You know, that you can't have a game using AR that's AR enabled that can achieve pretty massive adoption.
Right.
I think what everyone's alluding to here is spot on though in terms of the hardware not being ready yet. I think I would agree with Greg that North is getting in the right direction of what will probably be a mass market hardware, but they're obviously still a bit off. I mean, the cost is still an order of magnitude too high. But that kind of form factor is small, unintrusive. I think that is ultimately what's going to win out. And I think Prashant and I talked about this as well. So I think eventually we'll get there. I do agree it's going to take a number of years, and we probably won't have that, this year or next year, most likely. When it comes to what me personally as an investor, what I'm excited about, I would probably agree with Prashant in the sense that I'm more excited ultimately by the consumer applications. I think what we need to first get right, and I think actually I'm probably a little more bullish than I think on finding a company today that will one day become a market leader. In particular, I'm looking in basically companies doing AR cloud or multi-user persistent collaborative software platforms. I do believe that potentially we have a company that's already built today that is being worked on that will one day create that platform that is a last mover in this space. When it comes to that particular layer of the stack. So that's what I'm really excited about. I'm also well aware there are enterprise AR companies that are becoming real businesses. And I do agree with Prashant, they can be real businesses and they are generating revenue. It is harder for me to also see how these can become $100 billion type companies in the future, because I think they are very customized as well. So I would have to agree with most of what everyone else has said on the panel as well. But I would just be a little more bullish in the sense that I do think there is probably a market leader that's already being built today. So I'm actively looking.
Right. So earlier, just now, you mentioned last mover. Why is that important?
Yeah. Well, the VC game. Just what most VCs I'll say look for when we invest is we do want to find companies that have kind of a massive scale upside potential.
Mhm.
And the reason is just because of like the economics and how all the structure of VC investing.
Mhm.
So for us, we're always looking for companies that we believe can become ultimately the category leaders.
Right.
And those are companies that will end up being valued at 100 times the second place company.
Got it. Right.
And I think that's what Prashant was alluding to as well. He's looking for companies at that scale as well.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of VCs will also look for companies at that scale. So when we think about what the big opportunities are, we're always thinking big numbers, big markets.
Right. So speaking of rockstar companies that will eventually dominate their respective markets, we've all heard of Niantics, the Magic Leaps, right? The Ubiquity Sixes. Is there any or one particular company that you think is underrated but is doing absolutely amazing things?
Everyone pick a portfolio company.
Go for it. Each of you guys can pick a portfolio company. My other question was actually, have you guys made an AR investment in the past year? So the two is kind of related, but let's go on.
So I would say like the one company that's like, I guess it's kind of underrated still, but I mean we all know about it. But I think again, I think they're just moving in the right direction. So like, I probably won't invest in it, but North, I just do like the fact that it's carrying the form factor in the right direction. I don't know if they'll end up being the guys who master it ultimately, but probably go to North. And then there's lots of startups that we're actively talking with that, I won't necessarily want to disclose like everyone's doing. Regarding the second part of the question, well, I'm actively looking and speaking with AR startups.
Cool.
And unfortunately, we haven't made an investment in the past year, but we're actively looking for the right partner with.
Thanks.
I don't know of a company that is doing the full stack right. I know companies that are doing certain pieces right. I'm hoping they all will come together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm invested in a company called Cura, K-U-R-A. If you look up their videos and see what they've built a pretty incredible optical module. So the visuals that their optics generate are pretty extraordinary, I would say. And then, Ramsey's company reads your mind. So
There you go.
it's going to be important.
What's your company called?
Durable.
Arable, all right.
And that will be very important for future area interfaces. You're not gonna want to walk around outside talking to Alexa, say, Alexa, pull up the weather. No, you're just gonna want to think weather.
Ooh, habits, right? So they do mind control. If you guys are interested, we'll talk to them afterwards.
I think my favorite one is actually a VR company.
Okay. Yeah.
I think kind of like one of the reasons why we hype AR over VR is because you're not isolated.
Sure.
And you can kind of exist in a lot.
Yep.
But there's a company called Neopolis,
Minneapolis, okay.
founded by another recovering venture capitalist in Louise Island, amazing founder. And what she is trying to optimize for is kind of retail apocalypse 2.0.
Right.
Spaces are going empty, nobody can fill spaces, people are lacking community, they all belong to. So what she was able to do was she was able to develop proprietary hardware that actually works, where people can go and interact in the space together in VR and have like really interesting experiences. And they have 4 or 5 facilities launched actually Mexico as a test right now.
Oh, wow.
And it's
Wow. And are they monetizing that?
absolutely
now too? Nice.
absolutely
Okay.
heritage for reserve.
Fantastic.
Everyone should look them up.
Yeah.
So I recently invested in a company called Fire, and I'm really excited about them. So they are, I think when you think about natural use cases for AR, navigation is one of them. Fire is building a augmented reality navigation solution, starting with technology as it stands today. And so you essentially, what they're building is something that you can mount your phone in your window. Some of the mounts out there will work, but you need to have the back-facing camera facing the road. And essentially you look at the phone screen, and the phone screen shows you a video of the road in front of you, and it overlays directions on the road directly in front of you. It's an incredibly talented team solving, a very practical problem of the misturn that we all know about. It's a much more natural way to interact and to use navigation rather than looking down at a 2D map. And I'm really excited about it. They just announced a seed round. That was a $3 million seed round that was led by Norwest and the VR Fund. They're building great things, and I'm excited about them.
Yeah.
It's Fire, spelled P-H-I-A-R.
Okay, that's always good to know. You never know with these startup names, right?
I-A-R.
It's going to be missing some vowels there, but not to monopolize, the mic here. So I want to give it the opportunity for the audience to ask some questions too. So I'm going to go around with any questions if you guys got it. All right, so.
You guys seem to be pretty interested in the big industry movers, AR cloud, big platforms, Degree 6. Do you think in the very near future, let's say a year or two, a legitimate, large consumer app focused on AR can be successful? People point to Pokemon Go as kind of the proof there, but as a big Pokemon Go player, the AR was a 5-minute experience that people turned off very quickly, and it really wasn't a core fundamental piece. So do we think consumer AR apps in the near future, at least on mobile, has a short-term upside?
Do you count Snapchat?
Absolutely, sure.
Then yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly think it's possible. I think some of the technologies that we've been talking about up on the panel, AR cloud and things like that, didn't exist beforehand, and so the compelling nature of many of the compelling elements of AR were missing. I.e., Pokemon Go, you have a thing floating in the scene. I mean, it's not really very compelling. But I think once those things get solved by companies that are using backends like 60.ai, and it really looks like things are in the scene, and you get some creative people coming into the space and really designing some really cool experiences where it's scavenger hunt-esque and different things like that. I 100% expect over the next 2 years that there will be a company that is not one of the big companies right now that comes out that designs something that really takes the world by storm. That's my prediction.
So just to double down on Snapchat there. So about, I think the stat, I haven't looked recently, but last year it was like over 50% of their revenue comes from a platform that they bought for $150 million a couple years ago called Luxury out of Ukraine. And so it's just like the one thing, it's like the map your face to the dots. There's like a really interesting box article about it that shows exactly how they do it. And that basically was the hook that got everyone really usage really, really high for Snapchat. So it'll be some thing that we're just like killer use case in the world.
Yeah, some of a little more bearish on that, but I think it's possible. I don't anticipate it happening, but who knows?
You guys have it on tape. Play this back in 2 years.
We're here obviously talking about AR as the focus. Just to sort of benchmark or compare AR to the other sectors that you're also interested in or excited about, because I'm guessing you all have other sectors that are also interesting. Is there another sector that's top of mind for you, and how do you compare and contrast it to the strengths and weaknesses of AR as a sector to invest in?
So AR was had a pretty. What's out of that? Okay, I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
So AR had its most recent big day in the sun in like 2013, 14, 15 when I was building stuff in that time period, because I know how much capital is really going into it as from the other side. And we've kind of fallen off of that excitement curve right now for whatever reason. Hopefully it's going. And so, but something that I'm really stoked about right now is eldercare. here, so it's something that there's not that much in it. It's a really massive growth market, and it's something that we're looking at quite closely. So, yeah. Then you can apply a whole slew of technologies to that vertical. So.
Just one thing, I would encourage you, just because I just looked at it, you'll probably find it interesting given this story, is just to look up the 2018 Gartner hype cycle for emerging trends. It's a really good, I think you just Google it and you'll pull up the image. Augmented reality is on the, it's on the down. I don't think it's at the bottom, but it's on the down. But it has all of the different, areas and sectors that probably all of us up here look at.
What's on the upswing now?
It's a good question. I don't recall off the top of my head. There's literally like 50 sectors on the graph.
50 sectors, okay.
Yeah.
So when a bunch of VCs, oh, it's red, I think the battery's dying. So when a bunch of VCs are talking to each other in private right now, they are basically all going like, there's nothing to invest in, there's nothing to be excited about. What are you telling people? You have to make something up, right? So it's like people come up with some random category like fish, goldfish farming in Canada, right? It sounds legit, that's a thing, nobody knows anything about it. Maybe someone will believe there's some companies there. I don't think anybody really knows right now. People wanted to believe that blockchain and crypto would be that, and that they're obviously very much on the downswing. I don't think anybody knows. Genomics, maybe.
Hello. Yeah. I mean, I think for myself, AI. I know it's like always a buzzword, but I mean, AI is what enables even augmented reality, right, to happen. So I think AI is a little bit more mass market ready than AR. So I think there's still a lot of great opportunities in AI, especially applying AI to all different types of fields and industries. And then the other one, personally, I'm super excited about, but I think there's market timing challenges and regulatory challenges still. But things related with genomic, basically genomic kind of sequencing / screening, testing / eventually editing. I think the market opportunity there is massive in the long term.
But we all forgot the most important category, scooters. Duh. Changing everything.
Definitely on the outside.
Micro-mobility.
Hello, thank you for talking in this panel. I have two questions. My first question is, so you were talking about like technology and hardware and platforms, but so does everyone remember the PSP or the PlayStation Vita, where like not a lot of people used it because they can't justify buying a new piece of hardware because there's not a lot of things, like not a lot of games that people can play on them, not a lot of things that people can watch on them because they use like proprietary form called UMD. So like, do you also include like how many people are developing for that platform, like creators and things like that?
Include in what sense?
I have a second question.
What do you mean by, do you also include?
When you like consider whether or not a company would be like, or a hardware would be successful?
Yeah, I think, I think one thing, look, there's tons of different data points you can look at to try to figure out how real a trend is and what the potential of a trend is. Look, crypto is in the dumps right now, but there's still a ton of, there's still some of the brightest minds in the world who are working on decentralization. And so to me, when you've got some of the brightest minds working on the problem, it's a real indicator that like there's a lot of potential there. And so that's just one data point, one example, but I think all VCs look at a number of different examples. How many headsets could actually ship this year to get people in VR? How many people are actually working on the problem to create cool content and stuff like that, like for the example I just gave in blockchain. But there's no one day, a bunch of VCs look at credit card activity to see where spend is going. There's a lot of different data points that VCs use to try to figure out what trends they really should be kind of doubling down on. Second, you have another question? No.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of false signals with developer enthusiasm that we've seen. I mean, I love a lot of the time that I've spent in the AR and VR community has been with developers who are just passionate and working on cool things, and they build because they love what they're building. But it hasn't necessarily translated into market success. I think ultimately the driver is, somebody, consumer or enterprise, somebody has to be using these things. Now, if developers are entering the market because it's the app store and because they're making money, not just because they're personally interested, that's a stronger signal that, okay, there's a business being created here. This might be sustainable. But enthusiasm alone does not pay the bills.
Okay, so thank you. And my second question, actually I didn't think about it until it was mentioned earlier, Mr. Victor Wang. You mentioned earlier about, they're not as concerned about privacy and things like that in China, and that's why they have a bigger data set. And that kind of bothered me a little because, I don't know, I was thinking that, well, as investors, how much responsibility do you think? Because you're basically shaping the industry by funding, funding projects, funding technologies. How much do you consider the ethical and moral implications of the tech that you're funding? And how does that calculate into whether or not you want to invest in something? Thank you. That's all my questions.
Yeah, definitely. We care about. We don't want to make the world a worse place. None of us went into this business, I think, to make the world a worse place. So we do consider those. Now, I think the challenge sometimes is that sometimes what I would say the mass public considers unethical in the near term, or maybe kind of questionable, sometimes actually turns out to not be what people think in the long term, right? There's a lot of innovation that initially happened that it kind of shocked people. And then in the long term it turned out everyone accepted it and their lives were better for it. That's actually probably the trickier part, where sometimes we do have these gray zones where we need to try to navigate that. But ultimately we do consider the ethical concerns, and we, for example, our fund, we don't invest in weapons and things like that, adult content and all that. So there's some things that we just have a hard stop, we just won't do. But definitely we consider that.
I have a thesis that I won't invest in problems that make 1% of his life 1% better. A lot of companies in Silicon Valley are kind of made-up problems for Silicon Valley, where it's a slightly faster database or some random combination of stuff, or some new HR platform that's built on React instead of whatever the previous iteration of JavaScript was. And there's a concept called startup fratricide, where eventually these startups just eat each other because there's only so many HR platforms that Microsoft provide. And so after a certain point there's these better problems to be solved. So my most recent angel investment is a company called Kiftwood. And so a common joke is the hardest decision you ever make is the person you'll marry. The hardest decision you'll actually ever make is deciding which home you're going to put your mom in. And so she's trying to optimize for how you do that and how you can make rational decisions instead of just trying to leverage which is in a very emotional situation, how you make good rational decisions. So that's common for everybody.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a sci-fi thing because I love it. But the impact on society in more longer term, 10, 20 years, based off of doing a lot of augmented reality and VR, the ability to 3D print things and then reuse those 3D printable products to do something else. The jobs that are created because of it, the tools that are used, what's the long-term impact, and your investment strategies. This is not a question. This is just sort of a rambling, dreamy sort of daydream thing. But not to mention the product girl. All right, where am I going with this? Neural, I think, is definitely the way we're going to control it. I think the Gartner Group hype cycle is right on the mark. AI is going to figure into it. Cryptocurrency is going to be the way we're going to exchange these virtual and objects that we're going to, and it'll be how we're going to be paid to translate that. So I don't really know what I'm saying or where I'm going, but I'm just trying to look ahead, and my vision gets really foggy about 5 years out. So whatever the hardware does, I don't know. Neural implants, I don't know. But having a fine-grained reality to map everything sounds a little scary too. How do we justify privacy? If everything's mapped.
I guess kind of part of an answer to both of these questions is just like, we're just people, and just like you can found a company that creates weapons and leaves the world a shittier place, like we can invest in companies that we don't have any more power in particular than a founder has to create a company and elicit change. I think one of the reasons why I like living, I'm not originally from the Bay Area, but one of the reasons why I like the Bay Area is that I genuinely feel when I'm talking to people that in general, people generally have the feeling of wanting to make the world a bit of a better place. And I think my LPs gave me money because they believe in my vision of the future, and I want to invest in things that I can be proud of and stand behind. In terms of the long-term implications on things like privacy and, do we start to get into Black Mirror situations and things like that? I mean, I guess my vision of the future, I guess, part of what makes VCs, part of a characteristic of VCs, I think, is there's a bunch of different things that you need to have, but I think vision is one thing that you definitely have to have as a VC. Have a sense and a conviction about what you think the future is going to look like. You invest according to that. You invest in good people, and you try to help direct them. Try to help direct your capital and your advice to continue doing good for society. And lo and behold, go figure, it just so happens that oftentimes the things that are good for society are oftentimes make pretty good businesses as well. So, I guess there's my rambling back to you.
How to minimize resource utilization with a growing population would be significant accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, we're not the UN or the World Health Organization, or we're not, if you take it to the extreme, sure, we could be taking our capital and be investing, only in things that are gonna, renewable energy and things that can help ensure that the food population, that the food supply remains, is able to keep up, etc. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we also have a responsibility of our shareholders to invest in businesses that we really think are viable. So, again, just people, just trying to make, just trying to do our thing, invest in companies that have potential.
So we've got time for one more question on here.
Yes, it's just a direct question. Have any of you had a demo of any videos in your highlight field display? And if so, what would your impression of it? They weren't in display this year.
I have not.
What is it?
It's what they've been working on is their AR solution. It's very closely guarded. It's not using a stereoscopic effect. It's using actual light field.
Is it OLED or?
I have no idea.
I know people who have. We could talk offline and I can tell you who those people are at least. I have not seen it myself.
Right, I think we're going to end on NVIDIA's top secret project. So thank you all, basically, for coming out. And so, in terms of next event, we're actually having somebody from Magic Leap come out and speak in January. The location is going to be Berkeley Extension by Mark Darrow. But the date is still TBD, so get onto our mailing list and we'll definitely let you know when it's going to happen next. And thank you so much for you guys to come out here tonight too. And I'm going to let you all loose on these guys. So thank you.
Was now released software on autonomy back for Tesla? I mean, the team was legit.
That was great. I was actually one of the early
Oh, so you know it's real.
I know Mark